Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Test.
He just brings his Ken's 5 badge and y'all, that's what I told him.
Yeah, he doesn't need to do, it's the ones that, the goofballs. that-
Yeah, and then I
No
said,
name.
sports, I said, y'all are covering the games, I don't have time to be checking, like, they know,
It's the specific people that we all talk about.
yes.
Southside reporter, anybody can say they're a Southside reporter.
Where I'm a contributor to the Express News in the opinion column.
Speaking of, sir, I have I got press passes printed for the influencers and for our team, so that way they can get into games. I'll send you an email what they look like, so you can set them to your feed.
Super helpful.
And
Yeah.
So that way they know.
do we have any of those?
Yeah.
When's the logos gonna start going out for Fire and Arrow on
They're
Facebook?
actually trying to get it done right now.
Tennis is for all the marbles on Thursday. So tennis is for all the marbles on Thursday. So I can see it's not like this championship.
Brandon.
Brandon. Talk to Brandon.
Testing 1 2. There we go.
It is all bosses. I want to get onto bosses to the Fire and Arrow. And I talked to him about getting him upstairs, and he's like, yeah. We should have it outside. But remember how you gave out those little neckbeards for?
Yeah, what we're looking for.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to find them.
Of course, we're gonna have to limit people upstairs.
I know, I was like, should I just read
Because there is like a, get into the game, get into the press box type of deal. And he said, yeah,
We have some somewhere, just in our move, we kind of lost them.
You tell when people enunciate.
Yeah.
First of all, turn this off because that would just be alarming.
Did they hook up the strips for this email? Yeah, I think that was just what we moved over and it's not.
Are you coming to me?
He's gonna be in my car.
The fact that you're bringing to me here, if something goes good at the meeting, I'm just gonna cheer.
I was like, man, I've been meaning to get this back to you. I don't know how long. Mine's just been out of me, leave my seat forever.
For what? Oh, I thought you were EG Aggie game. I'm like, I was gonna give you this look like, just sir, because you'll have a lot of best friends then.
Mr. Hayes. Supposed to have the wedding, he's gotta go through that again. I gotta look back on mine and see.
So you think maybe?
Yeah, we did.
You think maybe?
I'll check that out.
It just came all of a sudden.
Daniel, what if you decide to be for trunk or treat?
I'm gonna try.
Just let me know for sure, because we don't want to duplicate.
Sure not gonna be.
Yes, you're a Woody. And Sullivan is Toy Store, Buzz.
Here, I'll show you. Maria found it.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one for you. But I hope it's not like 90 degrees.
Yeah, it's all over.
Okay, so what's his name? That's
Lots of.
lots of.
That's going.
So I thought of a good thing.
Go ahead, sir.
Is she coming?
Testing 1, 2.
Who, Jeanette? She's meeting with John Muniz, so yeah, it's for this meeting, so.
Call this meeting to order at 11:33. Like to go ahead and welcome everyone in the audience. And begin with our invocation of pledges. Roger?
Yes, sir.
Please stand.
Lord, we're thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, and its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. As we gather today for this important meeting, let us take a moment to reflect and express our gratitude. October is Principals Month, a time when we honor and recognize the pivotal role that principals play in shaping the success of our schools. Let us be mindful of their hard work and continue to support them as they lead with courage and compassion. As we move forward into our discussions today, may we seek wisdom and collaboration, keeping in mind the best interests of our students, teachers, and staff who depend on our guidance. May our decisions reflect our shared mission of fostering a supportive educational environment for all. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anybody sign up? Yeah, let's grab lunch. Nobody signed up for public comments? Okay, let's grab lunch and come back to our seats. Okay, we're back. We're all served. Thank you. Go to item 4, consider approval for overnight trip. District Unified Swim competing in Special Olympics Texas Fall Classic.
So to be quite honest, they have already competed. They competed this weekend. So it was
This
something that came up.
They're going like right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to put it on the board because
Okay.
it is an overnight trip for them. So we're very proud that they got this, opportunity.
Just have a question, how do we deal with the chaperones for them? I know that's.
Their parents are going with them.
And we get rooms for the students and the parents are staying with the kids each individual.
I just want to make sure they got everything they need.
Yes.
Board,
I move.
Second.
we have a motion, a second, that we approve the overnight request that's happening this weekend for a unified swim team to compete in Special Olympics Texas Fall Classic. Questions, anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, consider approval of purchase of Summit K-12.
Yes, at the last board meeting, the board received information on Summit K-12. So now we're putting it on, the agenda for formal approval.
I move.
I second.
We have a motion, a second. Board members, any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item 6, items of information. Let's start with the update on Texas Way, Texas Pride and Sportsmanship.
Yes, we have Coach Weiner here that's gonna present, some information. As you know, we're always working at making sure everybody's showing good sportsmanship. So I think now the state also has tried to help us to be able to help our parents, our students, everybody that attends the game. So I know I've seen some of the posters and we have some information to share with us.
So, hello everybody, and so the Texas Way is an initiative brought by the UIL, but also with the Texas High School Athletic Directors Association, as well as the Texas High School Coaches Association, with the idea to really combat a problem that is starting to surface in all of our communities in terms of sportsmanship, both with kids, coaches, and fans. And I think we've all kind of seen some of that. So the director, Ray Zepeda, presented to us at our ADs conference and basically gave us a lot of numbers. But what I've been telling all of our parents and our parent meetings over the fall as we got started was basically since about 2018, 2019, the amount of ejections, both with coaches, kids, and really parents, has gone up anywhere between 50 to 100% in the last 5 years. And as Ray Zepeda said, COVID made a lot of people crazy, but it has really come to a head lately, and something that we need to do something about. And it doesn't come, and we don't make change by just talking about it. So they put something around it. And so what they said was, in Texas, and especially in athletics, we do things a lot different than the rest of the country. And so when they go to different places around the country, they're like, well, you're Texas, y'all do it differently. Y'all do it the Texas way. And so what they said was, what we want to do is create sportsmanship and make that the Texas way. When you come to a Texas event and things like that, you start to see those things. And so this is kind of what we've come up with, and I'll present it to you now. So the Texas Way is a joint campaign, as I said, between the Texas High School Coaches Association and the ADs Association, in 2 words, character development. And the 3 things to do that we're looking to do is improve the level of sportsmanship at all of our UIL events, decrease the number of ejections at UIL sporting events, and improve the relationship between coaches, athletes, and officials and fans. The 3 pillars that we talk to our coaches and kids about is respect for others, control of self, and spirit of competition. So when we talk about to our kids and to our families and to our coaches, we talk about respect for others is a commitment to respect to all participants, coaches, players, officials, and fans. And the idea is that we give respect generously, and something that we really are harping on to our kids and coaches is when we give respect generously, you're giving respect to others because of who you are, not because of who they are. So if you feel disrespected, it's still, we give them respect because we're going to do the right thing. Control of self is all about controlling our thoughts, controlling our words and our actions, and really working on controlling our behavior. We do this we already do a lot of this through our 7 Habits stuff and through all of the things that we do in trying to separate stimulus from response. But self-control, the Texas way, is to handle adversity with class and keep your anger in check. And so we've gone through those things. And the spirit of competition is a commitment to give everything you have to your absolute best, and not sacrifice your character in trying to win. How we win is how we win and how we lose is more important than whether we win or lose. And so the Texas way competition, the Texas way is more than about the scoreboard. So what's our game plan? So they announced at the AD's conference about this. We launched it at coaching school, and then we have. So I have been to all of our fall sports and all of our middle schools, whether it be Mellorai, to talk about the Texas way, explain our expectations and things like that to our families. And we've gone through those things. So we've done a blitz in that way, promote it through stories throughout the year, and we're working on those things. And then we're measuring how many people we have had ejected and things like that. To this day, we've had one, and it was the very first scrimmage at Legacy. And right after that, we watched all the videos and everything else like that. And there's some interesting stories that we've had since then using our video boards and things. And then they're going to adjust from the data we get this year on how we go into year 2, and so on and so forth. So that's the plan. How we participate, we've already registered at Southwest ISD. All of our head coaches have already registered. And so both of our high schools are registered and things like that. All of our coaches have completed the Texas Way training. And we kind of took it a step further in creating some evidence of them taking that training and watching those videos. We're still working on sharing more of it with our families through SportsU and things like that. But and then all of our kids have watched those 3 videos on Give Respect, Spirit of Competition, and Control of Self. So they've all watched those. They're about 20-minute videos, and then they've done some quizzes on that as well. And so we've integrated that also into our game day experience. Those of you who've come to all of our games, you'll see that at Legacy, our media department did a great job creating a video with those, to really our kids talking to our parents about their sportsmanship and things like that. We've done those things. We've created some other things that we put out on social media and that kind of stuff. So we've integrated into our game day experience. And then we've already planned, and we pretty much have already met all the requirements to receive the District of Recognition Award, but we'll apply for that award as we come through to the end of the year. So here's the ask that they have asked us to do. We asked our coaches and athletes to complete the sportsmanship training. So that's videos, and we've done all of those along with the workbooks throughout the year. And then have an intentional character development program, which we probably go above and beyond when it comes to that. And so we've hit those things. And so
go back.
They also want
us to do service projects.
yes. And so the other thing is you have to do a community-led, student-athlete-led service project. We're already on about our 4th or 5th one. Our girls basketball team was at Habitat for Humanity last weekend. Our Dragon football team was cleaning buses last Wednesday. That was pretty cool. And then we had both schools. We had about 100 kids, close to 100 kids at the area Special Olympics swim meet that we're helping with that. And we have a ton more planned over the course of the year. But definitely have met that requirement and continue to do more with that. So what we're asking of our parents is to share the Texas Way fan video. So we're getting that out pretty soon through SportsU and things like that. And then to integrate the game day resources, which we're doing throughout. As you'll see, even for the Fire and Armor Bowl, Roger and his team actually took the Dragons one and the Legacy one, and we put one together for the Fire and Armor Bowl that we'll do at the beginning of that game. And then this is how you get district recognition to see the Texas Way Sportsmanship Award. We have to do all of our coaches and kids go through the training, which they have. The Texas Way fan resources, we share that, which we will do and do continue to do. The District Way have fewer ejections. We really only had, as I went through it, we had about 4 or 5 last year that were legitimately came from the UIL. And to be honest, they really don't know how they're going to measure that completely yet. And so we've talked to them about that and how we're going to go about that. So we're looking into those things. Coaches implement an intentional character development program. We definitely have that. And then the student-led community service, we're doing that. And we've already hosted officials appreciation nights at both campuses, and we'll continue to do that throughout the year. So we expect to be able to get that award. Highly expect that. And then, so this is for the different associations at the conference. And then that's, if you want more information, you can look at playthetexasway.com, and that's where we're getting all that. So that's what I have. Questions?
Anyone?
That's really neat though. I'm sorry.
No,
Good stuff.
you know, our athletes fine, but as far as the fan part of it, especially at Legacy, because we saw from that first game, to keep those parents apart. I mean, I know this is probably more a question for Chief, because those parents that were cussing at the vice principals from Legacy because they wanted the band, parents came from the other side to take pictures. And not only blocking all the special handicap seats and all those people up front, but then they have parents that were yelling at each other. Luckily, nothing happened, but I know we've talked about that before, keeping the people separated, and I know it's really hard at Legacy because there's no real fence, you know, where people cross.
Right.
Part of that, I think that definitely, I guess, getting the officers to make sure they police that a little bit better.
Right. We're actually working on some signage at Legacy too, to make sure the visitors go to the visitor side and the home team goes to the home side. In soccer, we tried to put it in the district minutes and lost the vote to have everybody separate in soccer, because as Ray Zepeda said in his, it's like the 4 sports are the problem. Or if we could put a net in between all of our sports, we probably wouldn't have much of a problem. But when kids touch each other, it becomes a problem and stuff. Football, basketball, soccer, things like that. But we are working on the signage for the parent part of it, and that's part of me going to all of our parent meetings at the beginning of the year too, is to explain that where people are, and my silly video that comes out, that to explain what the expectations are and what the consequences are when they choose not to act right.
Yeah, I mean, just going up more off of what Daniel had said, I know during that game, the one game that I haven't been out there in particular, I mean, I did address it to, it might be for Chief to answer this question or not, but trying to get them off the rails, it's like that whole walkway from point A to point B at the end was just full of, once the band came up, all the parents got up, and I never knew that was something that we were allowing them to do.
They go all the way to the front.
Yeah,
Is that what
they
you're
go
talking
all
about?
the way to the front, and that walkway is just congested all the way across. And told the officers, and they kind of responded back, well, the principals were allowing them to do that. And I'm like, I don't know.
I can talk to Ms. Freeman about that, because we have people assigned across that whole thing. So we just need to do a better job of not allowing that to happen. Anything else? Cool.
You've done a great job with our kids. It's
Thank
the
you.
parents that you
Oh, yeah.
you
They're
nor
fun.
I can control them.
Yep. That's
But that's, I mean, we can't give up on them, but we have to continue to to work with them. So anything you could do to continue to get the word out to the parents is highly appreciated. As we
Yes,
spoke
ma'am.
yesterday.
Yep. For sure. Yep. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bear County Education Coalition update.
Yes, so we do have Julia, and while Julia is setting up, Southwest ISD, and I think almost every school district in Bear County is part of the Bear County Coalition. And this is an
Education Coalition.
Yes, education coalition, yes. This is our way of being able to get information, testify, take information to Austin, and do our part to get ready. And this is a very important time for us because it is a legislative year. And we're certainly hoping that we're gonna receive some funding. There's also things in play that have to do with school vouchers and how that would affect us. So I invited Julia. Julia and I probably meet some weeks like 3 times a week, it feels like it, but we meet on a regular basis. We've also been more involved because the coalition asked certain school districts to take on certain components. Ours had to do with the retaining and hiring of staff, so we've been working heavily on that. So I invited Julia to give, yes, a presentation, but also to make sure that if the board has any questions, as we're coming up to the legislative session, we want to make sure that we have our elevator speech, so to say, on what we can tell people and how we can support the work that the coalition is doing. And most importantly, what's going to happen in Austin that will have major impacts for us, whether it's a major impact in funding, whether vouchers happen, hiring and retaining new teachers. So I felt it was very important to give the board this opportunity to ask questions.
Good checks on that one.
Everybody has a handout if you want to go based on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Can you all hear me okay, or do we have to be on Zoom? I can be on here. While we get that figured out a little bit, this first slide is really our purpose as the coalition, as Dr. Ball had reviewed. Our focus is to elevate, advocate, and connect on behalf of the region in Bexar County. My previous experiences as a legislative staffer, knowing that who is able to be present in Austin is able to get their point and their point of view across. That shouldn't depend on if you have the ability to have particular staff members. If you're a small district, large district, you all should have representation in Austin. And so that's where Bexar County Education came from, and proud to share some information with you all today. So I have a ton of stuff in this PowerPoint, but I know that you all have a really packed agenda, so I'm going to fly through it. And then if you all have questions or want to go through, perfect. Thank you so much. Perfect. If you want to go through anything specifically, or if I don't mention anything today that you'd like to talk about, of course, I'm here afterwards to talk about questions and comments. So we want to talk about where we are today, and you all have lived through this, are living through this now. But really at the beginning of 2023, at the beginning of the session, we were looking at a $60 billion total surplus. Unfortunately, even though we had a $60 billion total surplus, you all are experiencing what a lot of people have compared to 2011 type cuts. We had the overall FSP, which is Foundational School Program, go down by $3.1 billion. And essentially what happened is we had an overwhelming influx of out-of-state dollars come in and push for vouchers or ESAs. And what got caught up in that conversation was school finance. When we had during the regular session, we had 2 bills, one on school finance, House Bill 100, and several on vouchers that were traveling at the same time. They both stalled at the same time. House Bill 100, our school finance bill, was came back miraculously, but of course on the Senate side, they had added vouchers. And so they had tied school funding for vouchers. And I'm not sure if the sound is going to work, but here's what we had on the House floor, an exchange about what was going on in the budget, which that's House Bill 1, and why we were stalling on specifically pay raises for teachers.
Okay, but let's be real specific so everyone will understand. If the education scholarship program, aka voucher program, doesn't pass teachers will not get a pay raise, correct?
These strategies in House Bill 100, they all fit together.
Okay, so
And many of you all have heard me play that clip before, but they didn't go together. It was just that at that particular time, they connected those two pieces of policy together. And in fact, while Chair Creighton had said that on the floor, Governor Abbott later in front of a crowd said publicly, I want to make sure we provide a carrot to make sure this legislation gets passed. Abbott said of vouchers, once education savings accounts are passed, I will put on the legislative agenda full funding for public education, including teacher pay raises for teachers across the state. So he said kind of the quiet part loud. So we went through 4 special sessions afterwards where we didn't battle on the, it's something with my font. This is, I promise I don't normally use the typewriter font, but it makes me look a little bit nerdier, so I'm okay with that. But we went through 4 special sessions, not all of them addressing education savings accounts, some of them talking through property taxes. We had the impeachment trial that happened in the middle of the year. The timeline's a little bit off. It happened in July. And then we did finally get through special session 4 in November. But that was where we had a bit of a showdown on the House floor where 21 Republican members, and I don't make that a partisan comment, but it was important for the Republican group to say if this wasn't a partisan issue, it wasn't Democrat or Republican, it was 21 Republicans telling the Republican author. So I make that distinction very specifically. I'll talk about that in just a second, saying we want the education savings accounts portion removed. We want Article 6 removed. And they won that vote. Vouchers came out, and then the author of the bill chose to take the bill down. And so there's often this misunderstanding that the people who fought against vouchers also fought against the bill. That's not the case. They pushed an amendment to remove the voucher part of this larger school finance bill. And then the author of the bill chose to take that bill down. However you frame it, where the reality of where we are now is we, after 246 days in session, which by the way, every special session cost over $1 million of taxpayer funding, we have a $2 billion special education funding gap. That's not a Julia number. That's a Texas Education Agency number, by the way. That's the difference between what the federal government requires for you all to provide and what the state funds. We have the funding cliff approaching. We have $1 billion of school safety unfunded mandates. Again, not Julia number. That's a Texas Education Agency estimate. 0 cost of living increases for employees supported by the states, of course, and no inflation adjustment. After all of that, we, of course, went through a fairly vicious political season. I don't want to spend time on this, although if you all have questions, I'm happy to go through it. But as a result of the runoff that happened in May, of the 21 members, 16 of those members chose to run for re-election again. We only had 7 of those survive their re-election campaigns. There was a ton of money that was put into the state of Texas if you followed any of those headlines. So where are we now? Where are we going into the 89th legislative session? What we see is a uncertain Speaker Dade Phelan right now. House speakers have to be reelected by their peers at the beginning of every session. Most of the time, that is decided who the candidate will be by the particular party caucus before session starts. Sometimes there are quote unquote dissenting votes that happen or protest votes, but most of the time that is fairly decided by the time we get to opening day. What we have here is actually a kind of an uncertain campaign that's happening. There is one candidate that has come out as the quote unquote reform candidate. There are, I think, 2 other candidates still holding on, and then we have the current Speaker, Dade Phelan. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few months. This is important to us as policy nerds. I'm including all of you in that. You're all policy nerds now. Congratulations. We need to understand how the committees are made up. Who is going to be a committee chairman? one of the biggest questions of the speakership is if the speaker is going to allow their same party, in this case, Republican Party, to have Democratic chairs. And so that's going to determine how the committee makeup looks like. So that's important for us to keep track of. Dems as a default, because if the Republicans are divided, become the largest voting bloc. So it'll be interesting to see who starts to negotiate with the Democrats and what they negotiate on. Again, making no comments on the partisan nature of it. It's just interesting to watch and important for us to just be aware of some of those conversations happening. Governor Abbott has already said that he will declare education freedom, as he is now referring to it, as an emergency item. What that does is that allows those particular bills to go up as soon as session starts. Constitution says to elected officials that they cannot move bills for the first 60 days unless they're emergency items. And so he will declare education freedom an emergency item to get it moving as soon as possible. He recently released a letter in response to another elected official saying that districts are hurting financially because due to mismanaging ESSER funds, and we'll get into that in just a second, and drops of enrollment. Of course, we have the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who endorsed Speaker Phelan's opponent in his House race. So they are not currently BFFs at the moment. They're not getting along very well. And so it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic proceeds in the upcoming session. He has a fairly static body. We do have 20 senators returning and 11 general election races, but most of those, probably but one, are fairly decided given the current makeups of their districts. Unfortunately, when we're looking at the votes around parental empowerment, vouchers, ESAs, education freedom, we recently had 2 members of the Sweet 16, of those people who came back after their reelection, pledge that will include universal school choice. And so as policy nerds, we're doing a rough count to see what the vote looks like for the upcoming session. It's hard to guess because we don't know what the election looks like on the House side. And so please don't tweet this out anywhere. I know technically this is all publicly available, so it's only a joke, but this is an estimate. I say that it's an assumption, right? But it's a way for us to kind of look at the road ahead. These votes are based on if we were addressing the same voucher, giant school funding, accountability bill that we saw during the special session. And that's important because we did have several members say that they only voted for it because it included school funding, right? So we don't, it's not a science. This is more of an art or an assumption. And so what we're seeing here, that even if we have some seats flip, and again, I make no partisan assumptions, these particular seats are pro-voucher to anti-voucher seats, right? So even if we have those seats flip, the votes don't look great in terms of being able to take down vouchers in this upcoming session. Specifically, if you look at the middle, the green, which I should probably color a different color at this point, looks like we have, remember, they have to have 76. They just have enough to be quote unquote okay with vouchers. Now, that's again a lot of assumptions, but what that tells us is really the challenge ahead for us to focus on is around funding. You all are hurting. Everybody in Bexar County, you are an exception to the rule if you have not accepted or if you have not adopted a significant deficit budget, right? That is not an oddity. That is the pattern currently across the state. Especially in light of SHARS. Furthermore, while we have tons of evidence that districts are hurting, we currently have a leadership that's not yet speaking the same language that we are. It's important for me to say not yet, right? Not yet. Here is where they were at the end of last session. This is a clip from Lieutenant Governor interview right after the last special session.
Just a quick line. We spend $1 out of every $2 on public education, higher education. Our whole budget, about 50% of our budget is on education.
The lieutenant governor said that lawmakers approved more money for public schools this year.
Somewhere between a 14 and 18% increase, just this session.
So you're wondering, hey, Julia, you said that the FSP went down 3.1 billion. He just said it went up. Who's incorrect? Trick question. We're both right. What he gets to say that, and why he gets to say that, is because property tax buy down, that those dollars go where? Into, right, the public education system. The biggest, right, reason property taxes continue to be the way that they are is because they pay for M&O funding. So the way that you take down property taxes for property owners is you put more money into the school finance system to offset what local taxpayers have to pay. Does that make any difference in our classrooms? No, absolutely not. It does not change the size of the bucket, right, in school finance. It just is the difference amount of who's pouring in more water, right? And this is a clip from the Chad Hasty Show interview with Governor Abbott.
They blame you for schools not having enough money in the next budget. What is your message to the parents out there, to the teachers out there?
Well, they're shocked to hear this, but it's not me that's responsible for this. Almost every school district in the state of Texas, as well as across the United States, is facing that very same problem for reasons completely unrelated to the state of Texas. The reason why they have a shortfall is because the last couple of budgets they had an incredible amount of money given to them by the federal government in the post-COVID years, where the federal government just sent a boatload of money to our schools, and that increased their budgets dramatically. This year,
sorry to cut you off, Governor. So again, we're building this argument from the leadership side about what's going on in school finance. I really want to highlight the yet. I think there is a lot of opportunity, a lot of time for us to discuss the reality of what's going on in our school systems. But I want to make sure that we're focused on really what I see for the upcoming session is going to be a bit of an uphill battle for us to talk about the realities of our budgets and the realities of what's going on in our classrooms and the needs of our school systems and our kids, especially in light of inflation and continued recovery from the pandemic. There also is this notion that he's setting up here in this letter that I mentioned earlier, that in addition to enrollment going down, which by the way, the commissioner said enrollment is flat, he is stating many parents across the state whom I have visited complain about their growing dissatisfaction with the ideological leanings of education delivered by some public schools. Again, these are all rhetorical statements, right? Rhetorical positions that he's putting out right now that are, I think, only answered by what's happening on the ground level in communities from elected officials that talk directly with their constituents. Furthermore, we can show him the realities of our budget and show our communities the realities of our budget. Here we have our current basic allotment, and if it was tracked to inflation. But what I would recommend is the more state agency dollars or the more data that we get from the state, the better. And so on the next slide, I have a slide, sorry about the numbers being so small, but I will read them to you. This is from the Texas Education Agency directly. And this is just annual state and local foundation school program revenue. You probably have often seen the pie chart that the commissioner presents or a graph that shows those dollars continuing to go up or the number $15,000 per student. Those amounts include federal funding. They include INS rates, which we know are not equitable across the state. They include TRS pass-throughs. They include a lot of things that don't have direct impact on the classroom and for our teachers. So the way that we drill down is we focus on FSP revenue. Now, the purple line is what I would like you to pay attention to. And if you look at fiscal year 2015, that's the second column over. In 2015, we were receiving, adjusted for inflation, $6,900 per student. If we go all the way over to fiscal year 2023, and that's the third column over from the right, adjusted for inflation, we are getting around $6,700 if we round up per student. So the more that we talk about the agency dollars, the more that we dispel some of the bigger numbers that are happening out in the greater eco sphere, the more that we are being elevating about the realities of what's happening in our classrooms, the better we're able to counter this idea that just suddenly all schools across the state of Texas together are mismanaging funds. Seems to be a very big coincidence. Now, I know that many of you all have had a ton of questions about vouchers. These make headlines quite regularly. What are vouchers? How are vouchers going to hurt us? Is it a big deal for us to have to deal with vouchers? And so I wanted to give you some information as questions come up, because whatever happens in the next session, I know that you all will continue to be faced with questions as the months go on. So a couple of just kind of leveling vocabulary. Voucher is the colloquial term for all of these on the screen. Many people will retort and say, well, they're not vouchers, they're education savings accounts. Okay, cool. Agree. Technically, yes, what we're talking about today is education savings accounts, but people know them as vouchers. The difference is vouchers were once where funds were given from the state directly to the private school or directly to the vendor that received those dollars. So it was state funds directly to a private institution. And the family would just receive a coupon to say, I qualify for this particular dollars, right? That's where the term voucher came from. It's very similar to programs that we have in like housing development, et cetera. Education savings accounts, however, are funds that are put into an account. When they first came out, they were quite literally like a debit card, and families received a card and they could take out money for educational items. That was since stopped. There has been an entire market of education administration organizations that are now the middlemen between governments and the families that ask for education savings accounts. Those companies operate these bank accounts and they manage the bank accounts and the payments to the qualifying vendors. But the difference is that the funds go into those accounts. The state says, okay, as long as you're following the rules, and we'll talk about the rules in a second, it's your money. The family gets to then spend that money through the education administration organization on tutoring, tuition, etc. And then there also can be tax credit or scholarships that are similar to vouchers, but allow public funding to be directed towards private providers. So in the last called session, we had House Bill 1, and that included the latest version of the ESA program. I've included page references so you can feel confident in what you're saying to your constituents if they have questions. If they respond or if you want more information, please never hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to give you more information. Dr. Ball can attest. I can probably talk all of your ears off for hours about all kinds of stuff. So just a quick overview, the ESA was approximately $10,000. It was based on a percentage of what we get average M&O funding or operational funding for all students. So that's that $15,000 amount. That's all in federal, INS, M&O. So the bill said, well, ESA should get 75% of that. And so that worked out last session to be about $10,000. There was universal eligibility. Now there was some rules if the applications were more than what the fund allowed. So there was a set aside of $500 million for these ESAs. The bill said if more families applied for that $500 million, then you have to give out the remaining funds based on this set of rules. And it said special education, students in poverty, right, so on and so forth. And it had some rules. However, those rules only came into effect once that fund, right, was overspent. So, for example, we had 90% of that fund taken up by students who were already in private schools, and 10% of that fund was taken up by public school students who qualified for one of those items. That was still allowable. Okay, that's still allowable. And I think that's really important for us to note that it was universal eligibility, including for students who currently go to private school. There was no access to IDEA protections. In fact, you have to sign as a parent that you understand that you are waiving your rights to IDEA protection. Of course, there's no parent protection under Chapter 26, and there is an entire page on the autonomy that is granted to private schools, our vendors, under this bill. And while they'll respond with, well, they're accrediting them, it's accrediting bodies. Depending on who you ask, there are about 19 to 21 accrediting bodies that are quote unquote monitored by the Private School Association, but have no publicly accessible requirements in terms of what it means to be accredited. So I've included some considerations, but in terms of impact, we all know that schools are funded per enrolled student, right? Any additional student or any less student for our ISDs is going to mean less funding for our ISDs. Furthermore, I think a lot of schools that are in rural areas are saying, well, it's not going to impact us because we can't have private schools out here. This current draft allows for online educational course or program to qualify for ESAs. These particular programs have no requirement to be accredited, and they can be given to anyone. So I always caution districts who serve rural families that this is not just about brick and mortar private schools or tutors. These are online programs that can be advertised through social media or through other entities to families across the state of Texas. And of course, there's no accountability for taxpayer dollars. Now, I know if you're in the grocery store and you're talking to your neighbors, they're probably not going to be like, well, on page 94, it says in House Bill 1, right? I understand. I do get out sometimes. I have normal conversations occasionally. So I thought maybe I'd give you all some quick ways to respond as elected officials as well. And what I'm thinking, or what we've talked about rather as a coalition, is that vouchers or ESAs circumvent the government's responsibility to uphold the following. Now, whether the government is doing this or not is a whole other conversation and meeting, right? But as elected officials, you have a responsibility to uphold transparency, to give representation to your constituents, and to maintain equity in the eyes of the law. And again, whether we believe the government is doing that or not, you all, right, are trying to uphold that through policy. And here is why I think that, or I think a lot of people think that ESAs violate this notion. For transparencies, ESAs allow private entities to play on the same playing field, right, access the same students with different rules. There's no certification requirement, curriculum requirement, hour requirement, any kind of requirement that we know what it makes to make a comprehensive education for our kids is not required of our private schools or the vendors that qualify for online programs. We have no access to curriculum, teacher preparation, or efficacy of the programs that are offered. And while a lot of people say that this is parents' choice or parent empowerment, it actually is not in their hands, and it is the school who implements whatever admission standards they want. It's their choice about who they choose to have on their campus. There's currently also no way to comparison shop as we're held to different standards. Even in private entities, if we're shopping for a car, I know that I can compare my Subaru to a Ford Explorer. For representation, you all are a true testament to what it means to be represented at your ISD, right? If I have an issue with my current ISD, I know I can go to my school board member and say, I have a concern with this. How do I address this? There are grievances processes that are required by the state. And generally, for a program that costs even $1 billion in the first 2 years alone, taxpayers, generally not parents, are going to pay for this program. So your retirees, your folks who don't have students in the classroom are generally going to bear the brunt of this program, and they have no access to how these dollars are spent. Vendors have no obligation to the public or to the comptroller, who is going to control the program, because he knows a ton about education programs. That was my sarcastic tone. Has very limited authority to require the vendors to submit internal operation documents. Now, there is a requirement on the performance of the children who choose to be in the program, but the programs themselves, there's no requirement that they must submit how their programs are run. And equity or equality, some people prefer the word equity, but if many parents and constituents understand the true nature of equality when we talk about representative government, when you choose to be in this third system, the only recourse that you have is the legal system. In public school, you have a grievance system, you have a school board system, you have multiple ways to access your district, your campus, and access curriculum, teachers, etc. Chapter 26 is a fairly extensive chapter that protects our parents. For parents and families that choose to play, as I was saying, the only recourse they have is the legal system. They have to hire representation. This is going to be a system that requires you to have resources in order to fight back. Public schools may lose enrollment, but of course, sporadically and in areas that actually don't offer cost savings to the greater system. Many people say that, oh, well, we'll just save money because you'll have less students. I like to ask, how are they saving money? Oh, is that because you have to fire teachers? Is that the idea? Okay. And they don't always like that response. But it also is not as clear as that, right? We're not losing 25 kids in one grade at one time. And the thing that kind of keeps me up at night is that more often than not, what we see in other states is vulnerable populations often attract bad actors in a marketplace of educational products. We already see that today with diploma factories that claim that they can give students diplomas if they've dropped out of school, and often it's some kind of certificate that doesn't qualify or doesn't allow them to take the next step in their educational career. I worry about the marketplace that this sets up. But for you all in your conversations with your neighbors, in your communities, I think if we can continue to hit home transparency, representation, and equity or equality, that can drive home why these programs can be so harmful. What this also does is it says that Southwest is not afraid of being competitive. You all can stand on your amazing programs and your teachers and your communities. It's not a don't hurt us scenario, although you are concerned with losing potential funds. Your task as a school board member is to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and do right by your community's children. And so your retort can be, yeah, Southwest could be hurt by this. We could lose money. But most important to me, this violates the reason I was called to be a school board member in the first place. And I hope that helps with some of those conversations that I know will happen over the next few months and into next year. I'm happy to address any questions, and I hope I didn't go too far over my time limit.
Board? Go ahead, Dr.
I was just gonna say thank you, Julia. I've learned so much through you, and all the meetings that we have. So thank you for all the information and all the ways that you help us be champions of public education.
Thank you, Dr. Ball.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. closed session. Do you have anything before we go into closed session?
So I have lots of great things going on in our district, so I have one more thing. First of all, we will be having a GED graduation on October the 3rd at 7:30. So I'd like to remind you, everybody should have gotten one of these, but just want to remind everybody.
Where is it at?
It is going to be at Southwest High School Fine Arts Auditorium.
Okay.
Then, of course, the groundbreaking. The groundbreaking is at 2:00, but Mr. Alvarado has asked me to personally invite all of the board and all the senior staff. I should have sent you already an invite. And it's at Don Pedro's first at 11:30, if anybody would like to make that. And then at 2:00, of course, for the groundbreaking. Then, of course, very excited because this Friday we have our Southwest High School homecoming football game against Southside at 7:30. So very excited about that opportunity. So if y'all could join us for that. Then we have Legacy that's going to be traveling to Laredo for that game. Then on Thursday at 9 a.m., we have the Special Olympics state meet send-off. So if anybody can make that. And I will send out reminders for all these.
What time is this?
At 9
And where is that?
at the auditorium. Oh, excuse me, a natatorium.
Natatorium?
Natatorium, sorry. Natatorium,
Thursday?
Thursday. Then I think everybody's probably been practicing the golf swings because we have our foundation golf tournament on October the 18th.
Oh.
So if anybody wants to play, please see Jenny because I would gladly give up my spot if anybody wants it. So please feel free to give mine away, Jenny.
And that's not a regular place, right? Almost.
And then one that's very special, that this is the first year that I know of that Southwest has been invited to do this. But tomorrow, October the 2nd, we have some Medal of Honor veterans that are going to be at our district at Legacy, and that is tomorrow at 9:30. So if anybody would like to go to Legacy tomorrow, we have some of the Medal of Honor veterans that are going to be speaking to our students. So I think every senior will be able to hear this presentation. So very excited. And for right now, that's all the one more things I have. It was quite a bit.
Very busy week.
Yes,
October 4th football game. What time? Are we meeting early or are we doing a ribbon cutting?
On the 4th,
18th.
no. We're
No?
gonna,
Okay.
and you can go anytime, but then we'll have more information for the 18th, which is going to be the dedication.
But the game is at 7:30, right?
Yes.
Some games are at 7:30 and some at 7. Is that?
Any Thursday night games at 7, because it's usually somebody's traveling.
Okay.
And now Friday night games are all some of the UIL teams. Last year they were all at 7, but they trying to prevent
okay.
conflict with
Okay.
events in there and travel and places like that.
Does anybody think that they'll be able to go tomorrow to the Medal of Honor?
I should be able to.
Great.
I'll be there.
I just got this information right now. It says at 9:15, you're invited to some refreshments. So the culinary arts class, when the mariachis will provide entertainment and refreshments. So if you'd like to get there early, they will be having
And
that.
that's gonna be in the auditorium too at Legacy?
Yes, but the refreshments and the mariachis will be in the atrium area near
Okay.
the culinary arts.
Okay, you're losing me. You're
I'm sorry.
talking about October 3rd,
October 2nd,
October 2nd, tomorrow.
tomorrow. That's the Medal of Honor,
Okay. And be there at 9,
15.
and that's at Legacy.
Yes.
Auditorium's October 3rd, 9 a.m.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the send-off.
Send-off.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, we do have a closed session still right now.
Anything else, board members? Anybody have anything?
No, sir.
Okay, let's go into closed session as permitted by sections 551.001 through 551.146 and pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 and Texas Government Code 551.071 through 551.021. We will now go into closed session at 12:37. 14, 118. Okay, we'll come back in the open meeting at 118. Item number 8. Superintendent's recommendations.
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation on personnel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And possible action pending litigation as discussed in closed session.
I move to accept the recommendation of the superintendent and the school's attorney and direct the superintendent and the school's attorney to proceed as discussed in closed session concerning Stuart S., BNF Dana S. versus Southwest Independent School District before a special education hearing officer for the state of Texas. TEA docket number 397, SE-0824, SOAH docket number 701-24-24833.IDEA.
We have a motion and a second. As discussed in closed session, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Other business, anyone?
I think I already have a.
Okay.
You already got your limit.
Then let us go home for the afternoon
Not used.
at 1:19.
The recording has stopped.